I thought I was the chosen one. Who would have known my sister would suddenly announce she wanted to break off the engagement? I was so shocked I wet my pants. I stared at my sister in disbelief. She shook my arm. "Come on, bro. Just go with me. That guy isn't good enough for me anyway." I rubbed my forehead, feeling frustrated. So the Chin family is actually the villain clan, huh? I had always thought I was the protagonist of this world. After all, I was the young master of a top family. My status was noble, my talent exceptional. But now, my sister wanting to break off the engagement suddenly woke me up. "Your fiancé is named Zifan, right?" My sister Chin Yanrin looked disgusted. "What fiancé? It's all Grandpa's fault for saying the Z family saved his life. He insisted on arranging an engagement for me. And that Zifan is already 15 and still only at the Cheblood stage. I don't want to marry a loser." Hearing this, I frowned slightly. This Zifan is definitely the protagonist. And my sister and I are just the unlucky villains. Even if we don't break off the engagement, we would probably end up opposing each other for various reasons. Thinking of this, I snorted coldly. HMPH. So what if he's the protagonist? I'll fight for this destiny too. After that, I took my sister to the Z family. After breaking off the engagement with the Z family, I didn't forget to steal the protagonist Zifan's golden finger ring. And I took his childhood sweetheart, Yi Linger, back home with me. Unexpectedly, my actions awakened a system, due to the host altering a significant plot. Reward 50,000 villain points. Awaken hidden divine physique. Reward ancestral dragon essence blood and a marrow cleansing pill. Then I returned to the secret chamber of the Chin family. I muttered to myself, "System, activate the hidden divine physique awakening." Immediately, a surge of power erupted within me. The spiritual energy within dozens of miles rushed towards me wildly. This scene quickly attracted the attention of the Chin family. Great-grandfather appeared to investigate, and immediately ordered my residence to be sealed off. He looked at my cultivation chamber and murmured, "This seclusion doesn't seem like a breakthrough. It seems more like awakening a special physique. This kid already had a divine physique. Could it be that he's awakening a second divine physique? A dual divine physique prodigy has never appeared throughout history. If he truly is awakening a divine physique, then my grandson Xinjiang will surely have the bearing of a great emperor." In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. That day, my eyes suddenly opened. The divine physique awakening was complete. In an instant, 3 terrifying devouring forces erupted from within me. The spiritual energy in the residence surged towards the secret chamber. Great-grandfather, who was guarding there, couldn't help but frown. Such a vast amount of spiritual energy. Even a yin-yang realm expert might not withstand this. Yet this kid is absorbing it all in one breath. Isn't he afraid of bursting himself? Great-grandfather was a bit worried. Meanwhile, in the secret chamber, my cultivation was rapidly advancing. Such a vast amount of spiritual energy poured into my body, but it didn't cause me any disturbance. In an instant, I refined it into pure power. "Break!" I shouted softly. My cultivation directly reached the early stage of the divine power realm because I possess the immaculate divine physique. There are no bottlenecks between the major realms for me. But now I realized that what I had awakened was actually the gluttonous divine physique, a super divine physique capable of devouring everything, combined with the immaculate divine physique, which has no realm bottlenecks, as long as there is enough energy. My cultivation can rise infinitely. Catching up to the old ancestors in a short time won't be a problem. Isn't this invincible? I grinned. Soon, I walked out of the secret chamber. Great-grandfather's figure flashed and appeared in front of me. "Divine power!" Great-grandfather exclaimed in surprise. I nodded. Naturally, I couldn't hide this bit of cultivation from him. Moreover, there was no need to hide it. Great-grandfather looked me up and down. "I remember you broke through to the heavenly soul realm just a few months ago. Jiangbei, you spent a little time honing yourself in the heavenly soul realm. Hearing this, I showed a helpless expression. I had no choice. My realm simply couldn't be suppressed. The power I had previously devoured was enough to burst a yin-yang realm expert. But my gluttonous divine physique continuously compressed and purified the spiritual energy, so the increase in my cultivation had no side effects. Instead, it made my power even purer. That's how domineering the gluttonous divine physique is, especially when combined with my immaculate divine physique. The two are simply the perfect combination. Hearing my words, great-grandfather's eyes lit up. He placed his hand on my shoulder, and after a brief examination, he exclaimed excitedly, "Jianger, you've awakened another divine physique." At that moment, in the back mountain, all the old ancestors lifted the lids of their coffins, gathered around me, poking and prodding. It's really a dual divine physique. This is the first time we've seen such a thing since the beginning of time. Everyone's eyes shone as they looked at me. Great-grandfather asked curiously, "Jianger, what is your newly awakened divine physique?" The other ancestors also looked at me, ready to devise the best cultivation plan once they understood. I smiled slightly and said, "My newly awakened divine physique is a perfect match with the immaculate divine physique. It's the gluttonous divine physique, capable of devouring the heavens and the earth." Upon hearing this, the old ancestors exchanged glances, seeing the joy in each other's eyes. Devouring combined with immaculate, ha ha ha, it's truly the perfect match. The gluttonous divine physique and the immaculate divine physique complement each other perfectly. The combination of the two makes up for each other's weaknesses. Ha ha ha, our Jianger has the makings of a great ancestor. The old ancestors praised endlessly, but their final words made me break out in a cold sweat. That kind of talk is dangerous. After their excitement subsided, the old ancestors' faces grew serious again. "Jianger, your awakening of the gluttonous divine physique must be kept secret." One of the old ancestors spoke. As he said this, he glanced at my ring with a sharp look in his eyes. With a point of his finger, the ring on my hand shattered. A woman from the fire clan fell out of the ring. Seeing the woman, the old ancestors were not surprised. Their eyes were incredibly cold. It was clear they had long been aware of her presence. The Fire Clan woman's face turned ugly. The secret of the dual divine physique was too terrifying. If it got out, the entire Tiangshuan continent would be shaken. She looked around, her expression slightly bitter, facing these old ancestors. Even if she were at her peak, she would only be waiting for death. A member of the Fire Clan. Seeing the woman, the old ancestors narrowed their eyes. They looked at me, inquiring about the woman's background. I shrugged. I snatched her. Before my seclusion, I went out and brought back to people. One is her, and the other is the little princess of the Yi family. The old ancestors looked at me speechlessly and asked, "You knew of her existence long ago?" I nodded. Yes, I knew. I was even planning on having her bear my children to help carry on the Qin family line. Hey, hearing this, the old ancestors' mouths twitched. Carry on the family line. For a moment, everyone was unsure whether to proceed. Their initial intention was to eliminate all unstable factors, but if it could help carry on the family line, a compromise wasn't out of the question. Xinjiang's dual divine physique bloodline must not be wasted. It's best to have a bunch of children. Even if they can't inherit the divine physique, their talents wouldn't be bad. At this moment, great-grandfather asked, "Jianger, are you up to it?" I looked at great-grandfather with a puzzled expression. "Old man, what do you mean?" Ahem. Great-grandfather means this woman is quite powerful. Once she restores her physical body, she should be at the Saint Realm. Can you handle that? Hearing this, I glanced at the Fire Clan woman. From the looks of it, I should be able to handle it. As for other matters, further understanding is needed. Great-grandfather looked at me quizzically. He felt something was off with my words. Never mind. A saint shouldn't be able to cause much trouble. With that, one of the old ancestors took out a piece of white jade. Power surged from his palm, and soon the stone transformed into a ring. He tossed the ring to me, then looked at the woman. This is a soul-nourishing stone. Stay in here from now on. It's better than your previous ring. The woman hesitated slightly, then nodded. Thank you, 205. After saying this, she slipped into the ring. With this little episode resolved, the old ancestor's gazes returned to me. The guards around Jiyonger need to be replaced. It doesn't matter if the guards are replaced or not. One of us should go to protect Jiyonger. The one speaking now was the highest-ranking ancestor of the Qin family. Big brother, let me go. The second ancestor of the Qin family spoke up directly. The first ancestor looked at him and shook his head. Not safe enough. Fourth brother, you go. The second ancestor looked constipated. Damn, am I being despised for having low cultivation? The fourth ancestor, who appeared middle-aged, always held a folding fan and had a smile on his face, looked like an ordinary scholar. Hearing the first ancestor's words, he smiled and nodded. All right, this little guy suits my temperament. I had nothing to say, because I had no choice in the matter. Little guy, come with the old ancestor. The fourth ancestor waved his hand and directly took me away from the back mountain. As for the other old ancestors, they continued their discussions. Besides ensuring my safety, they were also discussing how to cultivate me. Because in their minds, I now absolutely had the qualifications to aspire to be a great emperor. And currently, there was no great emperor on the entire Tiangshuan continent. If I could achieve the great emperor's cultivation, the Qin family would undoubtedly become the foremost ancient clan. In the following days, I consolidated my cultivation, while also getting familiar with the gluttonous divine physique. With a flip of my palm, a devouring verse appeared in my hand. In an instant, countless spiritual energies surged into my palm. I didn't absorb it into my body though, but kept condensing it. As more and more energy gathered, the surrounding space began to tremble slightly. Then I suddenly hurled the energy in my palm towards a corner. With a loud explosion, violent power surged forth. But then another force appeared, neutralizing my attack. You little brat, you did that on purpose, didn't you? The fourth ancestor emerged from the corner. Grumbling, I chuckled. Fourth ancestor, how was my attack? What level did it reach? Hearing this, the fourth ancestor pondered slightly, just barely touched the threshold of the yin-yang realm. With your talent, exerting an attack one level above isn't something to be proud of, the fourth ancestor said with a smirk. But I was quite satisfied. That strike was just a simple application of the gluttonous divine physique. And it didn't consume any of my own energy. It also didn't reach the limit of the gluttonous divine physique. I estimate that if I go all out, I should have no problem killing a yin-yang realm expert instantly. I looked at the fourth ancestor and said, Fourth ancestor, I plan to go out for a while. As you wish. We agreed not to interfere with any of your decisions. Do whatever you want. If you need anything, you can ask at any time. This was the decision of the old ancestors. For a rare genius like Xinjiang, not interfering with him was the best way to cultivate him. Of course, his safety still had to be ensured. Leaving the residence, the Black Dragon followed me. During this period, the Black Dragon had refined the ancestral dragon essence blood, and its cultivation had reached the Unity realm. That's why it hadn't been replaced, and continued to follow me. We arrived at a secluded courtyard one after the other. I pushed the door open directly. With a glance, I saw a graceful figure under the tree. Young Master Qin, you are here. Yi Quan saw me and hurriedly saluted. Yi Linger saw me, her pretty face cold. But being under someone else's roof, she still bowed slightly in greeting. Young Master Qin, no need for formalities. I smiled, reaching out to help her up, taking the opportunity to hold her small hand and ask with concern, is Linger adapting well to the Qin family? Yilinger's delicate brows furrowed as she tried to withdraw her hand. But my strength was not something she could compare to. No matter how hard she tried, I remained unmoved. Moreover, my address made her heart filled with disgust. "Young Master Chin, please respect yourself." Her voice was a bit cold, but I continued to knead her jade hand without changing my expression. Yi Quan, standing by, looked at the sky and the ground, avoiding looking at his own lady. Yilinger's face turned ugly. Even Zifan has never done such intimate actions. I chuckled. "You want to see Zifan, don't you?" Yilinger's pretty face stiffened, and she instantly became tense. "What are you going to do?" Hey, I just want to take you to see Zifan. You miss him so much every day, it makes my heart ache." As I spoke, I pinched Yilinger's shin. Although my voice was gentle, Yilinger felt a chill run through her. "No, don't go looking for him." There was a hint of pleading in her voice. In her eyes, Qinjiang intended to use Zifan to threaten her. And indeed, that was my plan. But I also needed to change the storyline. Now, Zifan had already left the Z family, and leaving the Z family marked the beginning of his rapid development. I needed to see some of his opportunities ahead of time, so I took Yilinger and left the Qin family. The journey was quite pleasant. 3 days later, I held Yilinger's little hand as we arrived at a small town. By now, Yilinger had no reaction to me holding her hand. It's truly terrifying how one can get used to anything. Yilinger looked at the town. This wasn't where the Z family was located. Could it be that Qinjiang wasn't looking for Zifan? She looked at me in confusion. I glanced at Yilinger and smiled slightly. "Do you want to see a good show?" Yilinger averted her gaze and didn't answer. Anyway, she definitely had no choice in the matter. Then I led Yilinger towards the center of the town. About half an hour later, we arrived at the upper floor of a tavern. Opening the window, there was a stage outside. A crowd had gathered around it. A large banner hung above the stage. "Martial arts competition for marriage." Yilinger looked at the stage with no interest. I stood at the window, wrapping my arm around Yilinger's slender waist. She squirmed uneasily, then gave up resisting. Perhaps by doing this, she could plead for Zifan more effectively later. She comforted herself with this thought. I pointed at the stage and spoke softly. "The one hosting the marriage competition is the city lord's daughter. It's said that she is the most beautiful woman within 1,000 miles. Many people have been drawn here, hoping to win her favor. You too?" Yilinger asked in surprise. I nodded seriously. "Yes, I have that thought. But there might be other surprises. You might even beg me to get on stage and compete." Hearing this, Yilinger's delicate brows furrowed tightly. Looking at my smile, she felt uneasy. At that moment, a gong sounded, signaling the start of the martial arts competition. An exquisite figure descended onto the stage. The surrounding crowd's eyes were fixed on her, filled with eagerness. The woman looked at the crowd with a cold expression. "Defeat me and gain my approval. Then you can become my husband." She was the protagonist of the martial arts competition for marriage, Chen Ningbing. As soon as she finished speaking, the crowd erupted. Truly the most beautiful woman in Chengtown. If I could kiss her, it would be worth dying for. I heard the city lord wants Miss Chen to marry a wastrel from a prominent family. Miss Chen is dissatisfied and is holding this competition to resist. At that moment, a young man jumped onto the stage, staring at Chen Ningbing with fiery eyes. "Miss Chen, if I defeat you, can we go straight to the bridal chamber?" The young man licked his lips, laughing slyly. A flash of disgust crossed Chen Ningbing's eyes, but she still nodded. "Defeat me, and everything is up to you." With that, she pointed her long sword at the young man, her aura bursting forth instantly. A sharp edge made the young man's face change slightly. Golden body realm. A trace of fear appeared on the young man's face. Chen Ningbing didn't waste any words, slashing out with her sword without holding back. She was hosting the competition to resist her father, but she wouldn't choose just any husband. At the very least, he had to be able to defeat her, and this young man clearly couldn't. With one strike, the young man retreated repeatedly, his face pale. Chen Ningbing didn't move, unleashing 3 more sword strikes, each one stronger than the last. The young man immediately shouted, "I surrender." The fierce attacks landed at the young man's feet, making the stage tremble. The young man's body trembled, his face covered in cold sweat. He looked at Chen Ningbing in fear and quickly jumped off the stage. Everyone else was stunned as well. They knew Chen Ningbing was beautiful, but they hadn't expected her to be so strong. Golden Body Realm. Miss Chen is only 18 years old, right? She could be considered a peerless prodigy. The crowd sighed in admiration. Chen Ningbing sheathed her sword and stood, looking quite valiant. This only made her more attractive. Everyone's gazes became dazed. On the other side, I sighed. She is indeed beautiful. A flash of amazement crossed Yi Linger's beautiful eyes. But hearing my praise, she couldn't help but compare herself inwardly, feeling both ashamed and annoyed. This scoundrel was holding her while praising another woman. Several more people took the stage next, but they were all defeated by Chen Ningbing. After all, the news of the martial arts competition for marriage had only spread for a few hours, so most of the people who arrived were from Qingcheng town, and there weren't many true prodigies. Chen Ningbing felt a bit disappointed, but also slightly relieved. She was hosting the competition to resist her father, but if she met an exceptional man, she would consider marrying him. Does anyone else want to challenge? Chen Ningbing asked, although many were tempted. Her strength discouraged most. For a moment, many sighed in regret, but no one stepped forward. Yi Linger looked at me from the tavern. "Aren't you going to step in?" I shook my head and smiled. "No rush. The surprise is about to arrive." About a quarter of an hour later, I saw a familiar figure. My grip on Yi Linger's arm tightened slightly. Then I whispered, "The surprise has arrived." "What?" Yi Linger was puzzled. I didn't say more, just looked towards the stage. At that moment, a figure leapt onto the stage. "Miss Chen, please enlighten me." I smiled at Yi Linger. Surprised, didn't expect this, did you? Yi Linger's pretty face turned pale. Her jade hands clenched tightly. She looked at the figure on the stage, feeling a sense of bewilderment. "Do you see? That's your brother Zifan. After I took you away, he didn't even try to save you. Instead, he directly went to find another woman. The person on the stage was Zifan. Without the Fire Clan woman draining his cultivation, Zifan's talent had returned. In a short time, his strength had undergone a drastic change. In fact, his goal in the martial arts competition for marriage wasn't Chen Ningbing, but a special fire of the Chen family. Of course, if things continued like this, Chen Ningbing would definitely end up in Zifan's harem. But with me here, I wouldn't let that happen. I smiled slightly at Yi Linger in my arms. "Do you want to go see Zifan?" Yi Linger snapped. Back to reality. There was a look of bewilderment in her beautiful eyes. She gazed at Zifan on the stage, her pretty face showing disappointment. On the stage, Chen Ningbing looked at Zifan. She could tell at a glance that Zifan was only at the condensing pulse realm. She shook her head. "Don't waste your time. You're not my opponent." Zifan smiled faintly. "Hey, how would you know if you don't try?" His eyes were filled with confidence. Hearing this, Chen Ningbing frowned slightly, but still stood up and pointed her sword at Zifan. "Since you insist on challenging, I'll give you a chance." Sword light surged. Chen Ningbing slashed down with her sword. A flash of battle intent appeared in Zifan's eyes. He clenched his fist, flames actually swirling around it. Zifan let out a low shout and punched out, directly facing the sharp sword light with his body. With a muffled bang, Zifan shattered the sword light with a single punch. "Miss Chen, this little trick won't defeat me." Chen Ningbing's beautiful eyes narrowed. She had underestimated Zifan. That strike should have been enough to defeat an ordinary Golden Body Realm expert. Yet Zifan, at the Condensing Pulse Realm, easily blocked it. He was a genius. She immediately got serious. her aura becoming increasingly sharp. I underestimated you. Let's start over. At this moment, I sighed. TSK. It looks like Zifan might actually defeat Chen Ningbing. Hearing this, Yilinger's delicate body trembled. She lowered her head slightly, unwilling to watch the fight on the stage. But she knew clearly that with Xinjiang here, even if Zifan defeated Chen Ningbing, he wouldn't win the beauty. Still, Zifan looking for another so quickly made her somewhat disappointed. But thinking carefully, her relationship with Zifan was just that of siblings. Although they had feelings for each other, neither had spoken of it. Thinking of this made Yilinger feel even more dejected. More importantly, with Xinjiang's presence, there was no possibility left between her and Zifan. Just like now, Zifan was fighting while she leaned against Xinjiang, and strangely, a vague emotion stirred deep within her. It seemed like excitement. Yes, she actually felt excited. This made her feel both ashamed and somewhat confused. Her pretty face flushed slightly. I noticed her odd expression. Why was Yilinger blushing? I suddenly looked at the stage. Could it be because of Zifan? I licked my lips, a dark look in my eyes. Then I leaned close to Yilinger's ear and whispered, "I'll step in soon. Stay close to me then." No! Yilinger snapped out of her thoughts, shaking her head hastily, although she felt a bit excited inside. Facing Zifan while leaning against Xinjiang was something she couldn't imagine. I sneered, grabbing Yilinger's chin. "You have no right to refuse." MMPA. Yilinger's eyes shimmered with pleading, her delicate red lips trembling slightly. Looking pitiful, I kissed her forcefully. Yilinger's body stiffened. It felt like an eternity before I finally lifted my head, leaving Yilinger almost breathless. By now, her body had gone limp, barely able to stand if not for my support. Her pretty face was flushed crimson, eyes tightly shut, lashes trembling continuously. At this moment, I looked towards the stage. Chen Ningbing was already at a disadvantage. After all, Zifan possessed the fire god physique. Despite being a major realm lower, the divine physique made up for the gap. I glanced down at Yilinger. Perhaps it was her first kiss, leaving her dazed. Or maybe she was too shy to open her eyes. I didn't bother asking her opinion, holding Yilinger as I leapt out of the window. A few flashes and I landed on the stage, swinging my arm to interrupt the fight. "Zifan, long time no see." I looked at Zifan with a slight smile. The familiar voice made Zifan's body stiffen. He looked up, his eyes narrowing sharply. "Linger." Zifan was full of disbelief, staring intently at Yilinger in my arms, especially seeing her flushed face, looking shy and tender. He could completely imagine what Xinjiang had done to Yilinger during this time. In an instant, his eyes turned red, his heart bleeding. He then gritted his teeth and roared in anger. "What did you do to Linger?" I gave a wicked smile, because I could feel that Yilinger was definitely awake, but she didn't want to open her eyes. So she continued to lean against me with her eyes tightly shut. I chuckled and pointed to the tavern behind Zifan. Linger and I were just at that window, watching you. "Shut up." Before I could finish, Zifan couldn't listen any longer. Yilinger's cheeks turned an even more captivating shade of red, her body trembling slightly. She bit her lip hard. Suddenly, a barely audible moan reached my ears. I was slightly stunned. Looking down at Yilinger, my expression turned peculiar. Could it be Yilinger actually? I sniffed slightly, and indeed a faint fragrance wafted into my nose. At that moment, Zifan pointed at me angrily. "Xinjiang, you dot!" I looked up and shouted angrily, "Get lost!" A wave of sound blasted out, sending Zifan flying. Right now, I didn't want to waste time arguing with Zifan. Yilinger's condition left me speechless. The effect was too good. She was completely intoxicated. It didn't seem right not to take advantage of the situation. After a moment of thought, I glanced at Chen Ningbing, then shouted, "Black Dragon, come out and get to work. The martial arts competition for marriage is over. This woman belongs to me." With that, I carried Yi Linger back to the tavern room. Yi Linger lay limp on the bed. I leaned over her. Yi Linger nervously clenched her fists, her beautiful eyes staring at me intently. Don't mess around." Hearing this, I glanced down and chuckled. "Mess around? You're the one who seems more eager than me." Noticing my gaze, Yi Linger's pretty face turned even redder, her slender legs rubbing against each other. Indeed, Xinjiang noticed. How embarrassing! She closed her beautiful eyes, her body trembling slightly. I leaned in closer and whispered, "I never expected you'd be so reactive in front of Zifan. This must be your true nature." "No, it's not. I'm not like this." Yi Linger shook her head in panic. But deep inside, she couldn't help but tremble. She was also shocked. She had just reached a peak. Could it be, as Xinjiang said, that this was her true nature? How could this be? Her heart was filled with shame and sorrow. Suddenly, she opened her beautiful eyes wide, her pretty face red. She immediately grabbed my arm, her voice trembling. "No!" But I pretended not to hear, continuing my actions. "I've never touched you because I wanted to win your heart. But now it seems that's not necessary." "No, please, Yi Linger kept pleading, but her voice grew softer and more tender. She didn't even realize how alluring her tone had become. I smiled lightly, my hands suddenly exerting force. With a ripping sound,